between Comcast and Time Warner Cable is an exercise in lobbying. Comcast has spent $18,810,000 in lobbying last year. That's more than any other company except for defense contractor Northrop Grumman. A lot of that money went straight into the campaign coffers of politicians. $59,000 to John Boehner, $37,000 to Mitch McConnell, $27,000 to Mark Udall, $27,000 to Greg Walden, $25,000 to Harry Reid. But the real power in Washington is often Byzantine. Take this guy, former Navy SEAL Neil Smith. Neil Smith is the CEO of Comcast Cable, but he's also the chairman of the National Cable and Telecommunications Association. The NCTA gave $19,870,000 in lobbying last year, much of it going to the same politicians that Comcast contributed to. That made it the top 5 lobbyists in all of Washington, D.C. last year. And before Smith, chairman of the NCTA was Tom Wheeler. Where's he now? Well, President Obama named him the chairman of the FCC, the very body that will decide the fate of this proposed merger. And for anyone at the FCC thinking about their next job, well, the former chairman of the FCC, Michael Powell, he's now the CEO of the NCTA. And Meredith Baker, an FCC commissioner who helped approve the Comcast-NBC deal, well, she left the FCC to go to Comcast as their chief lobbyist. She's one of 107 lobbyists who are trying to use all of Comcast's power, influence, and money to urge Washington to accept this deal.
Corey Johnson is in the newsroom now with the NCTA president and former FCC chairman, Michael Powell. Corey, take it away.
Yeah, Emily, thanks a lot. So Michael Powell joins me right now. Michael Powell, we're talking about this notion of going back and forth, going from government to go to the private sector. Private sector is surely informed by that, so is government. But I think when sometimes people look at that and they see the numbers going back and forth in terms of lobbying, which I tried to make plain in that piece, they're concerned. Should they be?
Government, you should always be concerned to make sure your government is operating ethically and appropriately. And so I think it's a legitimate question. I do think it gets overstated by, simplistic looks. I left the FCC for 6 years before I ever entertained a job in the industry. I had not only an ethical obligation, but a personal choice not to do any work for companies that I regulated for many, many decades. But, I'm a policy expert. I spend my life, maybe my career, in the communications sector. And so it's pretty legitimate to ultimately have employment in that sector.
Is the policy so complicated that when the FCC is looking for someone, they've got to go to Tom Wheeler to hire him to run something who's got so many close ties, so has been paid so much money, whatever that is, by the industry?
Well, you're going to have to ask the President of the United States what goes into his choice for who he chooses as chairman, but...
I'd much rather talk to you.
Tom Wheeler, to his credit, was in the NCTA trade business 30 years ago. Is there a statute of limitations on when you can return to public service? I think the country needs qualified, talented, in-depth public servants, and I think I applaud the President for looking for someone who had that requisite background. He was widely heralded when the selection was made as somebody who had a deep understanding of the material, and I would argue, yes, it is pretty complicated.
So talk to me about the membership companies and what they want out of the NCTA. Companies like, Comcast, Time Warner Cable, and so on. What do they want out of, in particular, this ruling about net neutrality?
So, first of all, you should understand our membership is pretty diverse and somewhat of it in tension with itself. We have not only operators, companies like Comcast and Time Warner and Charter, we also represent all the content companies like Viacom, Disney, and Fox.
Well, let me push back a little bit in terms of revenue. So who's giving you most of the money? You may have a long list of members, but is most of the money from one side of that?
Yeah, our dues are rated by subscription and size, so it's obvious that bigger members pay a disproportionate amount of the dues, but it's well spread across the membership. I don't think that alone buys you direct influence over the choices the association makes. We're a trade association, which is, I'd be the first to confess, yes, we lobby, but we manage an enormous amount for the industry. We manage the industry's trade show. We manage the industry's development of public policy. We represent the industry like I'm doing today in the media. We sometimes are doing the legal work for filings at the Federal Communications Commission or other arms of government. So there really is a wider array of things we do. I personally, for example, spend very, very little time on the Hill in direct contact with members. That's not a big part of what I at least do in my job.
In this issue of Comcast in particular, net neutrality, they gave us a statement. I wanted to just read from it to be fair to them.
Sure.
And they say, we continue to believe that Section 706, as opposed to Title II, and we'll get to that, provides more than ample authority to impose rules. Comcast and cable companies, along with the telcos, have led the broadband revolution. There's this big debate. Title II, which would make sort of a public utility out of the companies that give us our internet, whether we're businesses or consumers, versus the existing regulations. What do you think?
I think it's a perfect example where the means start confusing the ends. I've never seen an issue where there's such violent agreement on the core objectives. Everybody wants to stop blocking. Everybody wants to prevent throttling. Most of our companies have said repeatedly publicly they have no interest in paid prioritization. And in fact, for 20 years, without any net neutrality rule, they haven't engaged in the practice even a handful of times that the commission can point to. And everybody's in support of increased transparency. Then you get into the legal minutia about the most effective way to do that, and that's when you actually get to this debate.
So
and I think it's a
is
legitimate
Title
position.
I with light regulation, Title II with heavy regulation, and Wheeler's plan kind of in between.
Yeah, in some ways, Title II, our greatest concern about it isn't so much about the core net neutrality obligations, it's the unintended consequences of what else comes with it. Title II is a body of regulations, the most heavy body of common carrier regulation that exists in the country. It was built for AT&T as a monopoly during the last century. It's 1,000 pages in length.
Right.
It has hundreds and hundreds of rules that would make fundamentally no sense when applied to internet infrastructure. And the government can't, to our satisfaction, sort of give you the confidence that it would rule wisely in the administration of those unintended consequences.
I just look at we have really slow internet speeds in this country compared to a lot of big countries with big, big businesses and big geographic footprints, and a lot of other countries with smaller geographic footprints. I mean, you compare us to France, we've got slower internet speeds. You compare us to South Korea, we've got, more or less than half the internet speed they've got. Doesn't the current structure reward companies for not investing because they don't have that kind of competition or the pressure on them to build utilities?
I don't think so. First of all, I could cherry pick countries to compare it to too, and the United States would look outstanding. Of the top 16 regions comparable by size, 6 to 9 of them are United States, actual state jurisdictions. So we're a country of 300 plus million people and a much bigger geography. It's a more complex problem, but look at the trend lines. Speeds have increased 1,500% in a decade. The network doubles in speed every 18 to 24 months. Right now, we're increasing speed 50% annually.
Michael Powell from the NCTA. I wish we had a lot more time. Thanks for coming on the show. We really appreciate it. Michael Powell, the President and CEO of the NCTA. Emily?
All right, Corey Johnson, thanks so much, and thank you all for watching this edition of Bloomberg West. Remember, all the latest headlines all the time on your phone, your tablet, Bloomberg.com, and Bloomberg Radio. We'll see you later.
Limited time? Save $10 when you replace your home phone with Magic Jack Go. Every Magic Jack Go includes 12 months of free, unlimited, local and long-distance calling to the U.S. and Canada. Do the math this holiday season. Click or visit Best Buy today.
We all think about life insurance, but when we start worrying about tomorrow, we miss out on the things that matter today.
You still taping?
At AXA, we offer advice and help you break down your insurance goals into small, manageable steps. Because when you plan for tomorrow, it helps you live for today. Can we help you take a small step? For advice, retirement, and life insurance, connect with AXA.
Gunderman Group.
Gunderman Group is growing.
Getting in a groove. Growth is gratifying.
Goal is to grow.
Gotta get greater growth.
I just talked to UPS.